And where you're standing now, maybe a little further away, we're going to talk about something called power poses. Have you ever heard of power poses?
No.
Um, I'll send you some conversation at Imogen. And Imogen is the one who got me interested in power poses many years ago. And
Okay.
they are a product of a woman named Amy Cuddy, who was a professor at Harvard, I think. I think she's moved on. Some 10, 12 years ago, she and I think some other people started exploring it. It has a funny history because some of the claims that she made have turned out not to be correct, but the ones that we're interested, I think, have stood the test of time pretty well. So a power pose could be something like you bring your arms up over your head. Not, don't try grabbing the ceiling, but just whatever you can comfortably do. And at the same time that you do that, you're bending your knees a little bit. So just explore doing the two together. Good. That is a power pose. And then we can bring your arms down and let your legs your knees unbend. That's going out of the power pose. Now, the power pose was originally an idea, I think, mainly for women who were feeling like they weren't being taken seriously at work, for example, like a kind of an executive meeting kind of situation, they would be overlooked because they were women. Or if you were coming, or for someone who was, say, coming in for an interview and wanted to be their best, make the best first impression, what she would suggest you do is do that for a few seconds, maybe 2 or 3 times would be one way to do it. And just do that again. Good. And then do it one more time. Do it one more time. And now, yeah, and then come back. Do you notice anything different about how you're standing?
I don't know. Am I standing a little taller?
I think you are. And she the originator of this framed it in terms of confidence.
Hmm.
You'd have more confidence. You would do this sort of outside when no one's outside the door, and then you'd open the door and come in, and the you that comes in would be a little more expanded, a little taller, a little
Okay.
more confident looking feeling. The
Mm-hmm.
feeling part, the confident feeling part, that's the part that hasn't stood the test of time as I understand it. But the change in your posture part of it has withstood. And in fact, we can experiment with that very precisely. If you've got the ribbon and the window situation set up that we talked about,
Yes, I've got a couple of
and
those set up.
can you easily bring the camera in there so we can actually watch you do
Yes,
this?
I've got some ideas here. It's going to get bright. That's
That's
the only
okay.
bad part.
We're not worrying about details. Let's see. Here
You
we
want
go.
to go? I have two options.
Ah,
I put a back
yeah,
of a whiteboard here and I put the
yeah.
string here.
I like the string part. So
Okay.
could you stand, let's see, maybe if we could move the camera further back so that we can see. Yes, yes, yes. Get the chair out of the way. And now if you could turn around, and what we want to do is have you line up that uh, uh, line with
Yes.
a line from a house or something across the way.
Yeah. Okay. So I did find a line, but I'm going to pull that down just a hair for the brightness.
Yeah.
Um, I, depending on where you stand, it moves a little, but my neighbor's house has a white fence across the
Yes.
back.
Can you
I
stand
lined it up with
can
that,
you stand far enough away? I think you have
that I can
to
line it up with the
that
fence.
because it's hard for me to tell from here, but that ribbon, can you have it just maybe right on the upper edge of that little white extension from the house?
Yep.
That's what we want.
Okay. I was on the, I couldn't
Oh,
back up enough.
that high? Oh, is that gonna,
Well,
huh?
depending on where I stand, it's a little
Oh,
funky, but
let's see.
okay. If I stand right here, it's on the top of the white fence.
Okay, okay. So anyone watching this would not see that, but that's all right. So when you're looking
Okay.
out, that ribbon is basically even covering up part of the white of that
Fence. Mm-hmm.
on the left side of the window. I guess it's the right side of the house, but okay, so they're in line, right?
Yep, they're in line.
Now, what I want you to do, just standing where you are now, do 3 of those power poses that we just did, raising your arms and bending your knees. Yeah, and then 2 more. Mhm. And 1 more after that. Okay. Now, what's going on with the ribbon and that white line?
Yeah, the ribbon is lower than the white line.
Right. And well, I would just rephrase that. Is the white lines higher than the ribbon?
Yes, like the white line is now slightly higher than the ribbon.
Now, if you just think about how could that happen?
Mm-hmm.
It has to be that you've gotten taller
Mm-hmm.
because you're looking out there. Initially, the ribbon is actually even covering up part of the white line, which is
Mm-hmm.
just a little part of what's in the window, but it's all we need. It's
Mm-hmm.
horizontal, the ribbon's horizontal. When you started out, one was covering up part of the
They
other.
were flush. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And then you did some power poses, and suddenly the white part of the line of that house was higher.
Uh-huh.
And the reason you know it's higher is that in order for after you've changed something,
Something about how I'm
you
standing.
you changed your height. You changed the height of your eyes for sure. And I don't think your eyes can go up very much without the rest of you. You know what I mean?
Yes.
You
Okay.
you got a little taller, and
Okay.
when your eyes are going towards that um whatever it is, a gutter or something on the house,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
your eyes are going down th through the ribbon and oh, because you're high, you've moved up higher than the ribbon and you're
Right. Yeah.
looking out and suddenly, you know,
Yes.
the how that line of the house is higher up.
Mm-hmm.
Above now, yeah, it's above. And that's not necessarily going to last a long time, but it lasts a while.
That's so weird.
Well, what it shows you is that you actually do get a little taller when
Mm-hmm.
you do that simple exercise. And now the lady who developed this idea of power poses, she wasn't thinking about centers of gravity or anything like that. She was just thinking you would feel a little more powerful or whatever. But
Yeah.
one of the things you're doing when you're doing power poses is you are raising your center of gravity a bit.
Mm.
So
Okay.
just as one more quick experiment with this, if you'd start over again, get the two in line once more, the ribbon and the gutter.
Yeah, I'm up to,
So
there we
this
go.
time, let's see if we can give it a little more oomph. So I want you to do those same three sets of power poses. But
Okay,
I'd like you to introduce a direction. And
okay,
there are all kinds of directions we could use, but let's maybe use a very simple one like I'm free and use that direction as you make those moves with your arms and legs
got
to
it.
get into the pose. And then when the pose is coming, you want to come back to standing.
Yeah,
Um, just have an idea that coming out of the pose is not going to depress that imaginary arrow through your center of gravity. I'm bringing this down. My legs are straightening or knees are unbending. You could phrase it. And in doing that, I'm not in any way pulling that line down.
okay,
Just that thought.
okay. I am free on the way up.
You could use the I am free both. You could use it, or you could use I'm not doing or I'm not thinking, whatever direction you want, but
Okay,
just bring to bear both the idea of some directing and
uh-huh,
be especially interested when you're coming out of the pose to not let that be a signal to push your center down any.
okay,
You're not, no work on your part. This is all mental. Or the
got it.
moving of the arms and the legs is work for sure. But your thought process, it's just a thought process. You're not manipulating anything
Okay,
directly with your
just the
conscious
thoughts,
mind.
just the
My
thoughts. I
conscious
am
mind
free.
is, yeah.
Don't press down the arrow. I am free.
Yeah.
Don't press the arrow. Got it.
You could do it that way. There are all kinds of ways you could do it, but that would be a great first experiment. So just go
Okay.
ahead and do that. Okay, what did you notice?
Definitely. Yeah,
Did
there's definitely a change.
and did it seem any different? Like, was it
Um,
bigger change, for example?
it was every time I add a direction to something, I feel so much more present and aware of what's happening.
Right. Yeah.
Doing something and then like, oh, what's going to happen is one thing, but adding a direction to it just helps me not just notice, but just like have such a wonderfully like relaxed, heightened awareness that of what's happening, whether it's getting my vision a little bit high, getting that viewpoint a little higher than it was in the room, or
Well, again,
walking,
the
or yeah,
viewpoint's higher because you're taller.
yeah.
It's not that the eyes are pulling you up. It's you're internally when you go into a power pose, you're raising your arms, you're lowering yourself to the floor. Both of those activities have the effect of raising your center of gravity
Mhm.
because your center of gravity is basically based on all parts of your body and how far they are away from it. So something
Mm,
like your head, for example, is about as far away from your center of gravity as you can get. So anything you do up here is going to have a bigger effect on your center of gravity than even bigger parts of you that are closer. And
okay,
by raising your arms or bending your knees, you're you're moving your center of gravity up within your body just by doing that. with or without
Cool.
directions. That just will happen. What the directions will do is kind of, they're like icing on the cake. They're going to make it even smoother, and
Yeah.
as you said, a more expansive view of things. And when you're coming out of the constructive, out of the power pose, you don't want to lose that little up that you've got. So you just are kind of quietly clear in your thinking. You don't want to depress your center just to get out of the power pose. You'd
Yeah.
like to
Okay.
keep the new height
Yeah,
as
I like
much as,
that.
just for a while. Not even keeps not a good word, because that's kind of a clinging idea. You want to continue that extra height as you go back into whatever you're doing in your life.
Okay.
So this would doing three is a bit of an arbitrary number, but it seems like it's a pretty good one. Maybe 4 or 5 seconds for each one, but you could play around with that. And if you're not, I think, yeah, let's go back into,
I need to write this stuff down.
yeah, and we need to get,
I just need to
we
write
don't,
it. I'm just like,
I can only
I don't
imagine
want to
what
lose
your
it.
neighbors would think about your sudden interest in their gutter.
My neighbors already know I'm extra special. They wouldn't be too surprised.
Um, so what I can just tell you the way I use it, and I've had a number of students who kind of approach it this way. If I'm in the middle of some activity, or I'm just like getting out of bed maybe, and I'm feeling a little stiff or whatever, or not quite fully present and fully upright, a really simple way to kind of get myself to a more expanded state is to do 2 or 3 or so of those. The effects will wear off fairly quickly, but you can always renew it. It's a
Mhm.
way of getting you out of something that you might be um, a little bit interfering with optimal use of yourself.
Okay.
It's a I would almost say it's a kind of a decompression
Yeah.
technique. And
Cool.
um, I would certainly experiment from time to time with the ribbon, because you want to really feel confident that this is working. But you can use it anywhere. Obviously, the whole idea of the original power pose is you don't walk into a meeting and do this a few times and say, here I am. You do that outside, in the hallway. Um, so, like at school, for example, I'm sure in the comfort of your own home, no one's going to get upset with you doing that. And if your kids or your husband or anyone is curious, you can tell them exactly how to do it.
Let's
Uh,
do it.
and I mean, I think most kids would the change would be pretty easily noticed. Maybe not by them if they're not used to thinking about that kind of thing, but
Uh-huh.
you'd see the difference.
Yeah.
Um, so I would just play with that whenever you think it could be a useful thing. Did you measure
Okay.
your height in the morning and the evening?
Yes. Do you
You
want me to show
did.
you?
Oh, yes. And what did you notice? Because this ties in with what we've been doing here.
Well, I mean, it was noticeably different.
Yeah, like about, for me, it's over half an inch.
Yeah. So the
Oh,
line on
look
the
at that. Yeah. Uh-huh. That,
that's evening and that was
yeah.
morning.
Yeah. So what, quarter, maybe a third of an inch, something like that?
Yeah, just about a half inch,
Is
I'd
it about
say.
half an inch?
Yeah,
Okay.
and that was just
And
the
those
first time we
markings,
measured.
you want to hang on to them for a while, because
Okay.
they might, the morning one, which is really I'd say the baseline one, it might
Hmm.
it might go up a little bit over time. Um, yeah, and as I think we talked about over the course of the day, you're doing activities that might put a little compression on your spine and the discs between the vertebrae. A little fluid gets squeezed out, and each one gets a little thinner. And
Hmm.
at night or constructive rest, even more so, that fluid can flow back in. And you may have noticed when you get up from constructive rest that maybe you notice you're a little taller or feel
Hmm.
a little expanded or something like that.
Hmm. It's a great feeling.
Especially if you use a self-direction going up that, which you will
Right, which I'm
because
gonna
the
get there.
crisis is over, right? Um, but it's constructive rest is like lying in bed, but on steroids. It's really
Hmm.
especially 15 minutes seems to be 15 to 20 for that to really kick in fully. On the other hand, if you only have a few minutes, but you're waiting for somebody and you can put yourself in constructive rest for even 3 or 4 or 5 minutes, or as a little break from some activity you're doing, like you're sitting at a desk for a while, you might want to get up and walk around and all that, but you might also want to just get a few minutes lying down, not the full 15 minutes. It's a
I
way,
love
it's a decompression, encourages an expansion. The biggest expansion is in the vertical uh, axis because we are axial creatures. We're much taller than we are wide or
it.
deep.
Right.
So most of the change is going to be that way, but there's also expansion
Oh yeah. Uh-huh.
and kind of a final thought to explore. And I want to go into this more next time. Any activity you do, anything you do with your arms and legs that involves um, bending, or anything you do except one is going to raise your center of gravity. If you think about it, um, bending a knee, getting into a car to bend your knees to get into that raises it. Um, anything if the neutral position is your arms just hanging down at your side, anything you do to move an arm, like even reach out for a keyboard, an imaginary keyboard somewhere here, that's raising your center of gravity because there's um, your hand and your lower arm are now moving your center up a little bit.
Yeah, changing the balance a little bit.
Well,
The
maybe not balance,
proportion.
but the actual location of your center of gravity.
Hmm. Yeah, I want to learn more about that.
But there is, I don't want to go into it now, but there is one activity that will lower it.
Okay.
And it'll be very interesting for you to
You're gonna
experiment
make me
with
wait
that.
till next week?
Yeah, because we're kind of we're running out of time. But mainly, I want you to explore that, using that, play around with it, picking things up, or you have to take a pot off the oven and move it somewhere else. Any activity you're doing will be a really, I think, an interesting one to explore from this point of view.
Okay, I love it. I have two quick questions.
Sure.
I saw in one of the things when I was exploring into some links you put about constructive rest,
Hmm.
I noticed that some people have done a 30-day constructive rest challenge. Is that something that would be beneficial or not worry about it yet?
Yeah, I guess is that from the
I don't remember.
Philadelphia group, or she has that on her website or something, I think. Yeah.
Maybe, yeah, somebody, I remember seeing it somewhere and I thought,
Yeah.
oh, should I do that?
I guess
But
the idea, I assume, is it's not like a race. It's more like Um, can you do constructive rest every day for 30 days? Um, it doesn't resonate with me particularly. I mean, I just think you should try to, if you can, get some in every day, but you don't want to go freaking out on the 18th day. Oh my God, I had this crisis and I didn't have time to do it.
That's my 30-day challenge. Yeah. And I think a
Yeah,
challenge would do that too,
that's
Robert.
what that's what I would worry about. But on
It
the
would do
other
that.
hand, for some people, it might be a perfect little nudge to have a little calendar and check off the days. So I'm
Yeah.
not knocking it. I'm just saying if you do decide to take the challenge, give yourself a little slack if there's a day that you're overwhelmed or
Okay.
or you just plain forgot it. That's not
Hmm.
the end of the world here.
Okay.
Yeah,
Perfect.
that would be my take on it. I'm
Good.
I've
Okay.
never been crazy about challenges like that, but some people really respond well to them. So,
Hmm. Okay.
do you have another question?
In the book placement, when I'm laying down flat,
Hmm.
if this is my body and my head doesn't want to be perfectly flat, it wants to be tilted, right?
The back of your neck.
Right. So like, yeah, like the books go, let's say my head is here. The
Yeah.
books go under my head and you wanted it at a slight incline, right?
Which end represents your head? The blue?
This is my body.
Yeah.
This is my head.
Okay.
My hand is this is my neck. My hand is my head. So I
Okay.
want it tipped up a little
Just a little bit, not even necessarily as much as you're doing. Just no, that's horizontal right now, a little bit.
and not horizontal. Tipped
Well,
up just a hair.
horizontal is not going to be harmful, but if you can, as long as you can have a little bit of an upward line and there's no pressure here, that would be optimal.
Okay.
The horizontal is mainly for people who, even with a little upward thing, they feel compression here. We don't want that.
Hmm.
So horizontal would be a solution to that. But for you, I think just a little
A little
up.
bit more. Okay.
That's all. It's yeah.
Okay. I think I was tending towards a little more horizontal, and one of the constructive rest listen alongs, was like, tipped
Oh,
up more is a little better than horizontal. So I just want to make sure I.
it's not a big deal. Well, I would say.
Okay.
I think it's just a little better to have a little bit of an upward slope.
Okay.
Mainly, I think to prevent it from being a downward slope. We don't want downward because that is going to limit the amount of release that you can get in your neck. It's
Definitely.
could have a little compressive effect, and we don't want to. The whole idea of constructive rest is decompression. We don't want to sneak in some compression. Just you know, we just want
Gotcha.
yeah. That's
Gotcha.
all that is.